So for you guys, I think it's important to create some context. You guys are, what do you call yourselves, a midwife couple?
I'm the midwife, so he was on a track to become a midwife, but then we had a paradigm, or you had a paradigm shift about it.
Yeah, we're a midwife team.
Midwife team.
Because we'll put that way, which for most folks that are in this world, that means a midwife with an assistant that they work with often. And I'm the assistant. So that's how we decided to set it up.
Amazing.
We were on a track to have both of us be midwives, but we decided about the end of last year that given where we want to go in the future, to be able to do trainings and do different educational platforms going to help other midwives and families and all of our audiences, that it'd probably be best to let her focus on being the incredible midwife she is. And I would continue to explore those areas and move them forward.
I'll tell you what, man, they are incredible because I got to see you guys in action, personally. And you helped facilitate Enzo coming into this world, and he's just in amazing health, and props to you guys. We're really, really grateful for you guys. And just to get into it, like what is your guys' story? Like, how did you even get into this?
How did we start? Well, I've been a birth worker since I was, in my early 20s, by finding a book at a library that kind of removed my fear of natural birth because I hadn't ever seen it. I didn't have a mom growing up. So then as I think when you're called to something, it sort of chases you, and births just chased me. I ended up getting invited to births. I did the births with my sisters, got more training, and then never in a million years thought I would be a midwife. I think that's a fun fact because I always thought midwives were just so calm and sweet, and I didn't see myself that way. And so I did doula support. For example, if you were planning a hospital birth, I would have done monthly care. I didn't even know that was uncommon as a doula. I considered myself more of a monitress, so I had some medical training. But yeah, I would just go and support moms until I had my own children. Then it would be like one every 6 months or so because I wanted to focus on my children. And then the midwifery call came later. I'm not so good with the years. This is where you're good. It was 2007?
Yep, about 2000.
2007, I was at a birth with a repeat client and dear friend, Trish. She knows who she is. And her midwife was Karen Baker. And Karen said, why aren't you a midwife already? I don't get it, because I kept going to her births. I said, Karen, I could never suture. I could just never wrap my brain around suturing somebody. And she's like, that is ridiculous. You don't have to suture to be a midwife. You always call in a senior midwife. So that I was so relieved that I could be a midwife and not suture. She's like, the chances are your greatest fear is hiding probably your greatest gift. And it turns out that is true. I'm ambidextrous. I can suture with both hands and upside down if I needed to. I love it. I love it. I teach it now. So it's my...
And now other midwives call her.
There's not a Tehran could not handle now, except for a 4th degree, which we're legally, that's a kind of more involved surgery. I wish I could do 4th degrees. Yeah. But we don't at home. You need a special surgeon for that. So that kind of started me on the next day I joined a college, apprenticeship model 1, where you do your didactic with other students. And Karen Baker was my teacher. She was amazing. And then we started working when?
Well, ours was kind of a personal and then a professional relationship. We were seeing each other back in 2011, 2012, that time frame. And I was just helping out kind of on the business side. I was familiar with Homebirth because I have 3 children, and my middle guy was born at home over 30 years ago. So I was certainly familiar with it and knew a little bit about it. But in terms of us working together, I was just doing a little bit of the admin work because there's a lot behind the scenes that, of course, like with any small business, has to happen. And then one day...
But we met around the birth. I think that's worth noting. I was taking care of his niece, and I went there to do a checkup on her, right? Because the birth's happening quick. He went to go get a neck pull. I had not met him yet. So we could have met that night. But she was already 7 centimeters. I'm like, if you don't want a home birth, we need to go right now. So we headed off to Loma Linda. And then we met at the 6-week checkup.
Yeah, at her son's 6-week checkup.
We knew he was my husband, future husband, the night we met. He didn't know it.
Just immediately.
It felt real good. Yep, from the start. So when we started doing a little bit of work and just helping her out as she was getting her practice going, because she became an official midwife in October of 2011, I was in between consulting jobs that I had been involved with up to that point. And then she asked me, why don't you just kind of come alongside and see if you can help support my business on a little bit more direct basis. So I started doing that. And then June 30th, 2014, so coming up on 11 years here, she had a birth start to happen here in Orange County. And it was a very interesting situation.
Abortion. Yeah, the mom calls. She had been in labor, but didn't call to tell me it had picked up very quickly. Cord had broke, blood everywhere. I'm like, you have to come with me. My assistant's still in Arizona. So they knew to clap off the ends because we provide cord clamps in their kits for all that. So that was your first.
My introduction. Wonderful Monday morning. Guess what you're doing?
Straight into the deep end.
Deep.
Shut the suture. I asked him to hold the flashlight. Now I have like a surgeon's headlamp. But back then he held the light. He's like, honey, I am not doing so well.
Yeah, I started to go out.
No, I don't need him to hold light.
Yeah.
This sounds scary to me. Just to let you know, I am not familiar with all of this. So it's very new to me. I've heard a lot from Zaid over here because he went through it. And to me, it's like a lot of the questions are, why should I do that? I know that traditionally people are just going to be like, oh my God, my water broke, let's go to the hospital. That's it, done, right?
Sure.
And then these days you start to hear about a bunch of crazy stories that happen in hospitals where you're like, I wouldn't trust my kid there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you mean? This is all news to, you know? And so, I mean, I guess my question is, what would be the benefit of having a midwife and a mid-husband and a home birthing in general?
I would also challenge your use of the word traditionally. I would say traditionally versus modernly. Modernly, we would see water broke, we got to go to the hospital.
Fair point.
Traditionally, any woman in the home would have known, we've got generally probably hours before we're going to call.
Or in the community, somebody.
That's so true, yeah.
So true. So we've lost kind of that old knowledge about birth as being a normal part of life and a part of a family system. So I get it because you've been influenced by the media, sitcoms, movies, life all depict Loretta breaks and then she's in all this pain. When if it was that way, we wouldn't have survived as a people. And today, if we like the saying, 100% of all people born today come from somebody who was born at home, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's the true thing.
Well, and we're not anti-medical and we're not anti-hospital, so don't hear that, please. We respect them and respect what they bring to the table when it's necessary to be brought to the table. We're just from a different side of it, where for us, if there's nothing that is presenting that is necessary that would require their services and their expertise, then there's no reason to go in that direction. And that's kind of why, as we go our path.
Yeah.
As to your question, because it's such a good question, are we allowed to talk about sex and stuff?
Yeah,
100%.
Okay, so one of the analogies I use for families, if you imagined a couple on their wedding night, let's say they're virginal, they're going to have sex for the first time, but he might have a little bit of a heart condition or comes from a family with heart conditions. So we're going to monitor that process in the hospital. And while we're there, we're going to put a blood pressure cuff on them and have them. If you can just imagine how horrific that would be for them to actually consummate their marriage that way. Nurses coming in, checking her vagina to make sure that we say yoni, to make sure that she's arousing at the right steps in the right time frame. It sounds ludicrous to us, but birth is more sensitive than sex. It's the exact same hormone oxytocin that gets her to relax and gets her to open. And we're asking a woman's body part to open based on a hormone structure, and we're changing the hormones with external random people coming in, sticking their hands up, and the way they check is brutal. It's so rough. The mom's crying. I see blood. How come I can check and I never cause pain for my moms? Because they're manually stretching the cervix and they're doing stuff up there that they shouldn't be doing without her consent. So we just bring it back to moms have the right women and families, men, have the right to have a process like birth happen on their own terms, not all these fear, what do they call it, hospital policies, based on fear. So,
well, and there's a lot of aspects to their world that they have to take into consideration that, frankly, we don't. The legal aspect, I mean, we obviously have to be a little bit careful, and we have parameters that we work within in the state in terms of legal and a permissible work that we can do.
Got it.
So that's one aspect. They're also a business. They have to take into consideration the time, effort, energies, and resources that they put into the different things that they do in their different areas. So there's a lot of different elements that come into play in that arena that, frankly, we don't have to consider. And one major area, honestly, is the fact that in our world, we have a pretty defined client base, you might say, that can be part of our practice. So
based on the law.
Yeah, based on the law and the parameters. So we get really healthy, informed, driven people that come to us that want this and do the things that are necessary for us to be able to work with them. That honestly, and we understand, in the hospital arena, if somebody shows up, you got to care for them. You don't have that option to say, well, wait, you've been doing this, you've been doing that. They just got to jump in and do it. So we understand and are appreciative of the fact that they have a whole different reference point from where they come from.
And all of this talk isn't even considering what it would be like to be a baby, conceived, growing in a womb, assuming that the parents, have a good relationship and a lot of peace and conversation around the baby. They get acclimated to that. And then on the day of their birth, they're being pushed into bright lights. And then the way that's handled as the head is emerging, they don't wait for restitution, which is when the head is coming down, it'll be looking down at the mother's rectum or up, depending if she's on hands and knees, which would be preferred, or on her side. And then the baby has to rotate so the shoulders can exit. They don't wait for that because, as Richard always points out, the OB is fully responsible for the life of that baby up until it's out. And then it transfers to the pediatrician. So they manually pull, and then they really aggressively rub with these towels before the baby's even had a chance to adapt. We've had a baby take 4 minutes to breathe, and it was perfect. The FOR rate was fully functioning. The placenta was fully doing its thing. We just waited as the baby transitioned. So that's an outlier, 4 minutes. Usually it's a minute. But still, having the training of how babies physiologically adapt to taking in their very first breath without sound, without all this chaos, it's a whole different experience. And the children end up being, well, we've heard from parents, different. We've had some families where they've had 3 hospital-born babies, unmedicated, and then they do a home birth and they just feel like something's different with that child. Because really, we've avoided a pretty significant trauma. And so we have to have that conversation. How does birth trauma affect our society? We're not talking about that. We're separating moms from their hormone structure to birth their babies by giving them epidurals. And I'm not anti-epidural, by the way. When we go to the hospital, it's for an epidural. I would prefer that than a cesarean. But oftentimes women are not being educated about what happens in an unmedicated birth. What are the advantages of mothers feeling all that and being connected to her baby and having that she produces pain relief for her baby as it's being squeezed and the bones are overlapping and the head is molding. And then when she sees her baby, they have likened that to a heroin, like a dose of heroin. It's an instant addiction to your baby. Like you're bonded. So I'm wondering what happens if we remove that, if we're just numbed out and we're not thinking about the potential consequence long term to that attachment between the mother and the baby.
What I appreciate about what you guys are doing is that it's centered around informed consent. Like that's the bigger umbrella that everything falls under, right? And so for me, that's very important because the work I do within the circadian space is all about informed consent. Like what are the pros and cons of a given intervention, right? And Abud talked about this. He was a doctor who came onto the podcast. He's a good friend of ours. And basically he talked about how centralized institutions and medicine is kind of dead in the way that it approaches biology and just human beings in general. Like it's very reductive. There's no life behind it. It can be very soulless. And so I think that's what you guys are bringing back to the society at large. And so it's kind of like the synergistic approach instead of just saying, oh, centralized medicine is terrible or midwifery and home birth is terrible.
It's a great point. And,
Or that all midwifery is good.
Yeah.
That home birth is for everybody. We would most certainly not.
yes, we've unfortunately heard stories in our world of other practitioners who handled themselves and have conducted situations that were not ideal, and kind of more to your point. So I think that what you're talking about is really important for us, because when we meet with folks, we let them know and understand immediately that you're owning this. This is your journey. This is what you're going to be taking on. We're going to come alongside. We've got obviously experience, wisdom, and capacity to be very helpful along your journey, but it's your journey. And all these decisions that we're talking about that in the medical model will just be axiomatic and they just do it. They don't talk to you about it at all. You're going to be answering and owning every one of them. So they say, well, what can I do? Well, it's not a can.
Yeah.
This is yours, right? Or should. And I always say, you don't should on yourself, right? You don't do that, right? Because this is yours. And, I always like to use the understanding that, someday your children are going to grow up and they're going to want to know why you did what you did or didn't do. And it's going to be really important for you to have an answer for that. And not just say, well, my OB said this, or, my mom was really thinking this, or Aunt Melba, or whomever, right? You want to own this in all the topics that we're talking about. So you're right. It's an ownership factor that's really, really important.
And that also comes into cultural sensitivity. We're trained in being aware of different cultures. For example, I come from a Hispanic family, and oftentimes there's a lot of instant credibility for doctors. So if they are doing a home birth and they come from that mindset, they will often put that on me. They want me to make the decisions for them. Instead, we're encouraged to ask them questions. Is it normal to have this? Well, does it feel normal to you? What else are you noticing? What are some other options that you think would work for you? And so oftentimes, even just beyond informed consent, we have to look at intention. What is the intention? Remember that one gal, she was going past her due time. She was going into the long part of 42 weeks. And she kept asking, is my baby okay? And I said, I can't answer that. We can assess, we can do a biophysical profile, but do you feel like your baby's okay? Do you want to continue to wean? And it was her second home birth. It, for some reason, scared her. So Richard came up with a great idea. Why don't you create a deadline for yourself? If the baby doesn't, well, this was Friday, we had that conversation. The baby's not here. How about by Sunday, you go in? And she was so excited at that idea. And guess who had her baby on Saturday night? Just the relief, like, oh, okay, I feel safe with that date. And then her body released and her baby came. So we can't let ourselves be put in the, like, we know better than them, because we do not know better. And at our birth team meeting, we tell moms, you trump anything I'm telling you, because there's an intrinsic knowing that's happening between your placenta, your baby, and you that I'm not privy to. And I'm not going to pretend to be. So, and that's another aspect back to your question, is that having that kind of respect for what she knows and her own ancestry, her own history, her own abuses, her own trauma. We don't know. Oh, they don't always tell me their trauma. I find out because it does get revealed in the labor. But yeah, self-autonomy.
How much pushback do you guys get for the work that you do?
It depends on, like, if it's a hospital thing.
Well, we have different audiences of pushback.
Sure. As do I.
As do you, I'm sure. Right? Well, sometimes it starts with just a couple.
Yeah.
One or the other may be very interested and desirous of what we do and want to do it with us, and the partner might not be there at all. So it could start as core as that. And then it spreads out pushback from families. We've
gotten smart with that, though. We talk about how we do the consult and how we now will not ever hire or let a couple hire us without us meeting both. We've made that mistake where we hire.
Right. We thought we knew somebody, and then the partner came in and just blew the whole thing up. So we've learned that. And then we have family, right?
Yeah.
Immediate family.
That just happened with that doctor.
That really has, questions or want to know what's going on. And so we get pushed back there, or they get pushed back and we get it, indirectly, you might say. So what we continue to do with that, and even medical personnel, of course, we get pushback from them and thinking that, we're taking this in a really crazy way. We invite everybody in. just keep inviting everybody in. We've done practices with, we've talked to doctors, we've had nurses, we've had all kinds of people in our practice. And we keep inviting them in because the one thing in our world is that we know our lane.
Mm.
This is our world. Nobody knows, frankly, in this world of what we do as much as Lisa Marie. She's done this. This is all she does, and has done this now for so many decades, and directly almost 15 years now as a midwife. And so when you know normal, that trumps everyone, because no medical provider, for example, ever just does normal. They're always concerned about the outliers. That's why they're trained for the outliers. That's why their medical training is for the outliers. So when we get pushback, we make sure that we go in the direction of, well, come on in, find out, ask your questions, bring it all in, and then hopefully you'll make a decision after that. And we've had people walk away and still not agree with what we're doing, but they get an understanding and they're more respectful of the fact that we know what we're doing.
So to limit pushback, however, we've gotten so picky about who we work with. So Richard created a 10-point algorithm of client assessment. They usually don't know that they're being assessed, although they now know. But I think it's fair. And he'll account for how do they get along? Like, what is their story like? What is their birth knowledge? How much do they want the home birth? How far are they from our home? And there's ability to pay, because that's a very real one. So we have all these categories, and then they're rated. And we don't take the D's and F's anymore. We didn't in the first so many years, we had to. Then we do a sit-down consultation with a slideshow. You guys experience it. Yeah. Well, we go through, here's what I carry at my equipment. Here's our philosophy about birth and catching babies and delayed growth. All the things are listed out. We show video clips. And by the way, I now have a first-timer consult. So the videos are only of first-time birthers. So, well, we're having a separate one made for VBAC moms and one for multips, women who've already had a vaginal birth, so that the videos are fair. You have a second timer just easing her baby out, and a first time mom's watching that. It's not always like that. So I think that's helped who we pick, and it lets out certain fears because they're watching it, and we have the time for questions, and then the dads get to ask their questions or express their bias or whatever. Mm-hmm. And if we have a lot of animosity from one part, or he wants it and she doesn't really want it, we're not going to work with that.
It's just not going to work.
Right.
Yeah.
They have to both own it.
Like, this is such an intense experience and process that both people have to be on board 1,000%.
Mm-hmm.
There's if anybody is hearing this, it'll be a number of, you said a couple weeks out, but on my Facebook, I just shared a post from an amazing midwife who posted about midwives and being, why when we're leaving the practice. And she explains all the aspects of it. Being willing to release a client, right? Just because we're committed, we don't have to be so community-based that we just take anybody. We can't. We're a mobile practice, so we're going to your house for every prenatal. I can't just do that. But we had one client that every time I left, I felt like crying. I didn't know why. Everything I suggested or would ask, it was responded to with, would you say animosity or just
hostility?
She didn't like me, but I was popular at her church. I had done 10 births there. So she was doing what, I guess. So finally I asked him, I just don't feel good when I'm here. He's like, do you want to let her go? I said, can we? Because I think that was the first time we'd done that. Mm-hmm. He said 100%, because it's not going to work for you. So we did.
For the pushback, Lisa Marie came up with a great thing, which is called homebirthfacts.com, which is little cards that we have and we give out to families when we know that they're going to face possibly some family members or others in their world, at work or wherever, that are going to have questions or comments that are going to be negative and not supportive. So it's a great, great website that lists everything that she carries, all of stats about home birth, just all the information. And I love it because it opens up. Like, if you've come here, you've probably got somebody in your world that's thinking about doing this thing. And so here's some information.
Yeah, we source it out of our website. So it's like ACOG. What are the comparisons between midwives in a hospital setting versus midwives at home? Because that's another thing, right? You were saying they have to take everybody. Well, what if we compare saying, low risk, first time birthers? What is their cesarean rate compared to at a home birth? It's very, very different. So, or at least comparable and safe at a home birth with a different experience for the mother. So yeah, so homebirthfacts.com, it's a standalone little resource for anybody who's doing a home birth. Because it's not just about our practice, it's for midwives in general.
I think, well, I have sort of a question. Why is it called why are you called a midwife? Where does midwife come from?
Good question.
You know the answer.
Well, yes. Midwife means with woman.
Okay.
So even men, we're not mid-husbands because we're still with the wife. Although a lot of times I am, right? That's a whole different topic. But yeah, it's with woman. So that's where midwife comes in, because you're kind of that mid person. And I think what's really awesome about that word is the fact that you are a mid person between the preborn and the born.
That's what I was thinking.
Yes.
Like, okay, mid, between.
That's
like,
yeah. So you're on it. You're on it.
But that's a fun take on it. But the actual word mid is with.
with.
Yeah, with a woman.
Makes sense. I kind of figured there was a deeper meaning to it.
Yeah, not to be confused with the younger audience who thinks mid is just mediocre. Like it's a different thing.
Thanks for joining us on this mid podcast.
You know what always astonished me is, like, I read this stat that in 2016, iatrogenesis was the third leading cause of death in the United States. And iatrogenesis, correct me if I'm wrong, but is basically a negative outcome that is inspired by the recommendation of a medical professional.
Yeah, like an intervention.
Third leading cause of death in 2016.
I believe it. We have one of the only increasing mortality rates for women, with it being way higher for Black women in our country, and an increasing neonatal death rate in the first year of life amongst other developed countries. So we're doing something wrong. We think it's induction. I think the induction rate is what's causing a lot of that, because they're giving moms hormones to force their labors to start. And then the babies can't handle that pain, is harder for the mom, so that she ends up needing that epidural, which then leads to lack of mobility, so babies can't descend and rotate in the pelvis, so then they need cesarean. So it just makes that a lot easier to do unless you're medicalized.
Do you know what's higher? Is it maternal mortality or infant mortality?
I think probably infant mortality is
Higher than maternal.
Yeah, I'd have to look that up. The CDC has all this, by the way, on their site. You have to
Good question.
which one's higher.
I'm not sure.
But I do know that Japan has one of the lowest, as does like Holland.
Yeah, I would say I believe it's maternal.
Yeah.
I think it's maternal, because especially postpartum, after the birth,
Yeah.
and the lack of care and resources that happen across our country in different socioeconomic situations, that I'm sensing that's probably where there's a lot of.
Yeah. Ina Gaskin, if you haven't looked it up, started what's called the Quilt Project. For every maternal death after birth that's happened, she's been sewing a quilt for every woman that has her information on it. And it goes like, if you laid it out, I don't even know how long it is now. It's incredible. Stories like a mother in New York who had come home from her induction birth, and then her uterus just relaxed at home and she bled out and fainted, and they didn't find her for 3 days. That kind of stuff. So like women are having the postpartum support and the looking after that they need when they're coming home from a difficult birth. So it's high and it's inexcusable.
It's shocking.
It is shocking.
And like, I have so many questions going through my mind because it's just such a deep rabbit hole. But
Yeah.
for you guys, I guess, what are the biggest misconceptions about home birth, water birth, midwifery that come to mind?
Well,
That's a fun one. You know what questions to ask.
I think the
more emotionally charged, the better.
well, the traditional thought is we just, or especially Lisa Marie would show up in a tie-dyed skirt and her Birkenstocks, and
Stereotype.
and just kind of sit around and see what you want to do here. And, that there's no professionalism behind it at all, and there's no education behind it. So there's really kind of a backwoods kind of mindset about this versus the nice.
I'm sorry. That's distracting. Is that your phone? Oh, that's yours. You might want to silence your.
It happens.
Yeah, he doesn't know.
Worry about it, man.
So I don't know how to technologically challenge. Sorry about that. So a lot of it is that it's just, there's nothing to it. We just show up and just hang out. And if it goes well, it goes well. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And oh, well. And so there's a lot of basic misconceptions about what is brought to the table from us.
Which makes sense as an assumption because like the education is just not there.
Right.
Like where do you find education on midwifery and
Just like
Homebirth?
most information in the world, it's not there until you seek it, right?
Great point. You have to seek it.
Exactly. So it's like, in what position do I have to be for me to be like, oh my God, you know what? I'm going to hire a midwife.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And what to ask. And people often think we're not educated. So that's a really good thing. You bring up education. They often think, because there is a traditional midwife, there's different types of midwives. Do you want to go over the different types of midwives?
Interesting.
Well, if we could talk about that, there's a nurse midwife. So that's a midwife that goes through nursing school and then post-nursing school gets a certificate and gets additional training in specifically midwifery at that point, and then will become a midwife. Certified nurse midwives, CNMs is what they call them. And you'll find them often Kaiser. The Kaiser chain is filled with them, which is fine. And at least they have some training in that direction, and that's their focus and desire. So that's a good element. Birth centers will have them as well.
Traditional midwives are apprenticed. So they would say that their training is not through like an organized
Educational structure.
But a lot of them are highly educated because they're very, very motivated. They're reading all of the right books. They're being apprenticed by an experienced midwife. We fully support traditional midwives, and that's the perfect call for some women, especially if they're not bound by the laws. They will do the twins in the breech if they have adequate training and they feel confident.
Which the law doesn't allow here in this state.
Which we wish that there wasn't a law that made that illegal. So I have chosen to be a licensed midwife so that I can collaborate with doctors without fear of litigation, so that I can carry medicine legally. And so I prefer that. And we have workarounds for the legal limitations, which we won't get into on this podcast, but Zaid knows what I'm talking about.
Licensed or nurse midwives are under the oversight of a doctor. They do not practice autonomously.
Yes.
Licensed midwives like Lisa Marie in this state, and again, we're talking about California since we're here, she is an independent practitioner. So like an acupuncturist or a chiropractor, she's under the dictates of the medical board of California, but not under the oversight of a medical doctor.
Gotcha. Given that the feeling of a hospital, especially the environment you're in, is usually pretty uncomfortable and prolonged recovery for
because it'll let you sleep.
Yeah, for humans in general, because like considering the amount of blue light, closed shelter type of environment, everything smells too sterile, and there's people that are robots that are supposed to be taking care of you. It doesn't feel the most comfortable usually, whether you're getting stitches, giving birth, waiting in an emergency room, doing whatever, right? Even if you're waiting for a family member that has some bra, it just doesn't feel great. My assumption is if you do it at home, your body has to be in a more relaxed state too.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
100%. I'm always reticent about saying too many negative things because I've come across some amazing nurses and doctors in the medical setting. Like Dr. Salcido, who my mom had an unmedicated birth. Her baby came preterm, and he didn't have any issue with whatever position she got herself in. She birthed on her hands and knees. First time I'd seen that in a hospital. I was so impressed with him. He did an amazing job suturing. Challenged me pretty hard on the delayed cord clamping, but I advocated hardcore for that. I got very assertive, and he finally just gave in and said, "Okay, we'll just chart it that they're declining." And because she was out of it and couldn't advocate for herself, and her husband was too into the baby, which was great. So sometimes we do come across lovely medical people. But yes, we think that the environment is counterproductive for healing. The
Absolutely.
thing is a huge problem for the moms. So we encourage them, even if you have to leave AMA, if everything is checking out fine.
Against medical advice.
Try to get home. Because if you get there past that 72-hour mark, it gets, jaundice levels increase, although jaundice is normal to a certain level. Getting them home before all that to save that.
Well, no one's feeling good about being there.
Well, see, that's the thing. I think anyone that has gone through anything really, you can see how much your mental affects your recovery process. And I think that's one of the benefits in my mind. as to having a midwife and having a home birth in general. I don't know. I know I'm not a woman, but
your experience about
one day I will be a husband.
yeah,
Right. It's kind of like what options do I have? Right. And I think I'm coming from the side of I'm open-minded, right?
Right.
And I'm not pushy. I'm open to a lot of things. So then these benefits are kind of steering me into a direction of, hey, you should go to the natural route. Maybe home is better for your life.
right. And well, what about you?
Yeah. And
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the mans.
the mass,
And the mans.
so the mass side, that's where I'm confused.
Yes, we got to talk about the mans side.
Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah, it's a big part of this. And I think also in the folks that we work with, they have a vision for what they want and how they want it. So we try to work with that and then work backwards. So as you get together and start to have children, you start to formulate that. You have vision for them all throughout, that whole process, right? We want them to grow up to be good citizens. We want them to grow up and be healthy. And we have all these elements. It starts with birth. So why not make that the first goal of what we're thinking about in terms of the vision that we're trying to create for our family? And then you settle on that as a couple and then work from there and see what fulfills that to that biggest extent.
So what does your work look like in terms of pre-birth? So I'm sure you guys probably work in some part during the
most of our work, we say, is not the birth. As a matter of fact, let's say somebody checked out of care. Maybe they're moving to Texas, since so many people have moved to Texas, or she risks out of our care. We have a very fair repayment policy, but we're the only ones to do it the way that we do it. But what we do is we end up charging, well, there's a deposit, and then we'll charge per prenatal visit, because most of our care and effort is in the prenatal time, because that's what sets us up for an amazing birth. For example, Zaid was and his wife, they were one of the few couples were on a transport. Their mindset was so holistic that even the experience in the hospital was filtered through their bigger picture about birth. They didn't feel victimized by it. At least it didn't seem that way from our experience together. So it really matters. That's set up in the prenatal time through education, and they understood where we had to go. She wanted to go. It was a very smart choice for us to go.
Setting this up and getting a vision for this, frankly, even starts before conception. We are really excited, and we're seeing this more and more, and we're getting more excited talking about people who are taking more ownership of their reality and the choices that they're making. They come to us, we call them TTCs, which is trying to conceive. So they're coming to us, and before they're even conceiving and saying, hey, what should it look like in terms of health, in terms of activity, in terms of lifestyle, these types of things that would set us up in the best situation possible, so that when we do conceive, then we can have the outcomes and create the vision that we want to have for that. And that's really exciting. So we start with that, and then definitely through the whole pregnancy, we will see folks usually on average between 8 and 14 times, and spend at least an hour per meeting. And in one of the meetings, it's 4 hours.
It's very helpful because you get education along the way.
I mean, this explains why you guys are close.
Oh, of course.
You saw the process. Like, you guys you're getting to know them, and then you help them through the process all the way up until today.
And then I only found out that you were Kara's aunt after the fact. So I was like, wow, how about this for synchronicity or whatnot?
So weird, because I remember meeting her parents when they were considering adopting her when she was still in my sister's belly.
It's unbelievable.
Such a
What a
that right there is the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But back to the prenatal time. So since we're mobile practice, we choose that for a reason. We could absolutely afford an office front. But instead of that, we chose to buy a ProMaster van that's got the bed and the kitchen and all the things. Because we've noticed that people are altered, whether they know it or not, the moment they're in somebody else's environment. So if I had an office, I'm going to get a version of them, but I'm getting the office version of them. when we're in their home, I am noticing details that they don't even know I'm noticing. Little things, interactions between siblings, how the husband speaks to her, that we've seen abuses come up that we weren't aware of until we started seeing patterns evolve between couples. And their lifestyle, how they're living, what matters to her. So when we step into her birth, we're stepping into her world, and we know how to facilitate ourselves so that, because I say you're hiring me to support you. You're not coming into my practice. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of involvement, and prenatals themselves are anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. And if she's got trauma, we already plan at least 2 hours because we know things are going to come up.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get that.
Yeah.
You want to do a prenatal.
No, it makes sense. The home matches the intimacy.
Yes.
Yeah. So
if you walk out of the house, it's like the intimacy is gone and you have to act sure.
Right. Legally, in this state, the families can be in our care through 6 weeks after the birth.
I see.
Okay. However, relationally, we go, years.
Yeah.
We have some that are very close friends now after many years. So,
and that brings up another point. So if you have a husband, for example, who has no problem protecting his family, advocating for the needs of his family in his home, and then he's in a hospital setting where he doesn't know any medicalese, he doesn't understand anything about what the doctor just said when she's in labor and is pushing aggressively for cesarean, he's going to just feel small. At least this is what we've heard from many of our fathers. And overwhelmed, intimidated, and then will agree because, well, the doctor knows about it. He doesn't know. But in a home birth setting, we always say at a birth, everybody's the midwife. I'm not the expert. I mean, maybe with suturing because I'm so good at that.
you're expert on many, many levels, actually.
Well, when it comes to the people invited to a birth, we're relying on everybody's intuition, even the doula. Doulas are extremely important. So that's a non-medical birth support person. And we could not do our practice without the work of doulas. So we're all that because we all love the family and we all know her well. So at least that's in the ideal.
This sounds like an Arab wedding.
I'll take them as a compliment.
Do you guys track how many births you've been to?
Yes, I told her to bring his computer because I had a feeling.
Just off the top of my head.
Well, for us as a couple together, we just passed 575 together. She's up over, as of last week, 777.
Wow.
Now, mind you, midwives have varying numbers. Sometimes midwives go to the Philippines during a tragedy, and they'll babies are just flying out. They're adding those numbers. All my births are just my schooling, my doula care, all my own clients. So the number is going to only ever be so high. So I always say, don't look so much at the number a midwife has, so much as the quality of care and shared perspective and philosophy, because that's going to be, we do have a lot of shared experiences under our belt now.
Still a pretty big number.
It's unbelievable.
It's a big number.
For me, I'm obviously limited in my perspective because I'm not the expert here. So what are the one or two core messages that you want to get out to people who don't know about this work or who have just kind of dabbled in it?
So, well, it depends if I'm talking to people who want to get into the work. That's one thing. Let's talk about that real quick.
Sure.
Because I get a lot of inquiries from people who want to get into the work. And I always say that midwifery is sort of like a mistress. In the beginning, she's okay with a clandestine relationship, weekend phone calls just on the slide, but then she starts to demand more attention. She wants to be the main thing, and she starts calling the house at night. I know it's a horrible analogy, but it works because at some point you have to address that you can't feed both. And there's all this idealism around becoming a midwife. It is not what everyone thinks it is. You're cleaning up pubic hair. You're cleaning up poop. You are working hard. You're sweating. You're doubting yourself. Most of us have imposter syndrome. You wonder why you're doing this kind of work. You're on call 24/7. At least we are. So it is rough on circadian rhythm. I'm fighting for that though. I'm learning how important that is. So don't go into it willy-nilly. I say start reading. Start getting invited to births and let it take time. As the midwife in LA said, I went to a conference and there was this beautiful older midwife. And again, I never thought I'd be a midwife. I just made the offhand comment to her, oh, I would love to be a midwife one day. I must have been like 23. She's like, oh, all you young ladies. She's like, you need to midwife your own families first. And I took that so seriously. Like that changed my perspective, because she's right. You can't, and I know all you midwives out there that have children, I know it's rough, but there is an advantage we have, that I don't have children at home. I don't have breasts that are leaking because I have to get home and nurse. I didn't enter the school till I was how old? 37? Mm-hmm. I think I was 37 when I went and started to become an actual midwife. So I had a different freedom that way of offering. So I think they need to really weigh that seriously, what it's going to cost their families if they have small children, or at least have a small practice. Mm-hmm. Don't do the load that we're doing, obviously.
For families and folks considering this, or at least have an interest that's been piqued by this conversation or other things they might have heard, it's really, I think, important, and I'm excited, frankly, that people really take a look at what do they want? What do they want to achieve in all aspects of their life, and especially one of these, which is right there at the top of most important or largest, things that you're going to decide on, and really learn about it and study it and do the deep dive into all the different elements and all the different options that you could possibly have. Because we are older, and that's great. And a lot of folks in my age range, they get a little crotchety and always want to talk negatively on those kids, and all that. I'm excited. I've never been more excited in my life, because I live in that world with this quote unquote younger generation. And I've never been more excited about the folks that we run into that really want to know things, and they really have access to things now, which is really a great thing too. So if you marry those two with your interest and the capacity to learn about what's out there and what this is all about, and see videos and read comments and just really do your homework to capture your own vision, that's what we want to get out there. And so as we move forward, we want to make sure that we present this side, you might say our side, of what this is all about, so that people can ask that question and they can start from zero, which most, frankly, our clients do. They have an interest, they have a desire, but they really don't know the intricacies and all that this is about. It would overwhelm them, and they really don't know what to ask. But we're in the process of wanting to get the information out and get the education out so that they can really get a good level-headed understanding of where things are and make a decision from there.
If we were to say one thing to people in general about birth, I would want people to understand that it does impact you. You can meet old ladies, on their deathbed often, and they'll remember their births. My grandmother had 19 children, and I think this influenced my wanting to do birth work. She told me all her birth stories. I would always brush her hair, ask her, tell me another birth story. And she remembered them. It's crazy. We remember her births. And she remembered most poignantly the last 3, because that was in the 50s when hospital birth became, they were from Mexico, Juarez, Mexico. They had come over, had all their children, and they wanted to be associated with being more modern and up to date. And so she had them in the hospital, and it was her whole face and demeanor changed. And she said she hated it. She didn't like it. It hurt more. She wanted to be at home with her patera.
Very interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. So
hurt more.
Well, because think about it. You're on your back generally because they want to see. And that's a very, how we imagine, we always go back to the farm analogy. I don't know if I ever shared this with you. I have a 5-frame comic strip. So if you guys know any comic strip people, I would love to have this made, where it shows a farm scene with a very pregnant woman and a very pregnant cow and other little creatures. And then the second frame shows shaky legs because their labors are starting. And on the third frame, you see Acme Vet Services is pulling up and they're hauling the cow up. And then on the fourth frame, the cow is on its back with every common intervention women are facing. Bright lights, rotating staff, vet with his arm up its, and then a pit drip, a blood pressure cuff, pulse ox. You get the picture.
Yeah.
And then on the last one, you see the woman's being supported by the farmer as the head of the baby's out. And one animal says together, we have to be really quiet or we could cause a problem for her. Because we all have this reverence for animals, but with women, we're less than a dog. We're less than a cat who tries to find privacy to give birth. And we think it's without consequence. That's my passion. My bigger passion is women with trauma. If you have been raped, if you have been molested, if you have been minimized or in any way abused growing up, you're going to just clam up in a hospital setting generally, unless you well prepare yourself for it with a good doula a lot of prep work ahead of time, and a lot of good therapy, you can have an amazing hospital experience. I've seen it happen. But it takes planning, and it takes being almost a bitch about it.
Wow.
You know, you can say, I'm not getting on my back. But what can they do? Force you on your back? No, they cannot.
Exactly.
But having the strength in the moment is what's hard, because they get very worked up if you're not on your back. A lot of them know you're pushing uphill once you're on your back. Tailbone doesn't go that direction.
Yeah, I could see that now. I could see that. Since so much is happening, you do not want to deal with the external crap.
Yes.
Well, right. The phrase that we've heard for so many decades, and it's really tragic, is, well, the baby's alive. You got a live baby, healthy baby.
Healthy baby, healthy mom. That's
Healthy baby, healthy mom is kind of the refrain, right? So that reductionist then means that everything before that,
it's justified.
whatever. It's a complete, free-for-all if it needs to be. Whatever they want to do in that world before that statement is okay. And we don't believe it is. We think all these elements are really critical, and the experience that you have and what you go through is really just as critical as the outcome of what it produces, right?
And I experienced that firsthand. Like when we were in the hospital setting, like especially after you left, they were trying to force things, and they were trying to. For me, I was always like, yeah, I have to stand up for, my woman and child, and I think that there was even a point where I had to like raise my voice to the nurse, because she just opened the door, came in, and quite literally raised her voice and said, look, we have to make a decision now. And in my mind, I'm like, that goes against informed consent.
Right, exactly. And the baby was fine, so what's the big rush right now?
To the point where I had to wait for a shift change, get a new doctor, a new set of nurses, and then the other doctor, I think Fiorentino was his last name. Amazing.
Yeah.
He sat us down, A through Z, informed consent, and we made the decision.
And that's a great point in terms of when people always ask us, well, what hospital should we go to, or where should we transport to if we have transports? Because we have transports. Obviously, you've experienced it. It's not an issue of the hospital. You could have the most awesome hospital and get that shift where people just aren't there, and you're right, for whatever reason, right? Or you could go to, quote unquote, the worst hospital and have just people that are angels. Mm-hmm. So it's really like you experienced. It's that type of thing. And that's what you face when you go there. That's one of the elements that you have to take into consideration when you're in that environment.
I think that my knowledge set now in my experience base and the stories behind my eyes that I carry in every day has given me confidence where I literally feel like I could defend birth to any doctor, anybody now. We had a lovely client we had in Hemet whose dad was an OB. No, he's an OB anesthetist. So he's the one sitting with the epidurals, as the moms are, or if they're put under. And his son was planning Homebirth, and he's horrified, and you want to talk to the midwives, and his wife's a nurse, and his mom, like everybody's like medical. So this was just recent. We went to the house, and we didn't even bring out our little consult thing. We just let him start asking questions. By the end of that time together, he was so impressed. He's like, I've always wondered why they don't let these ladies labor. The baby's doing fine, and they're just cutting it out. And he himself has noticed this trend. I said, exactly. We're willing to put in the time. That's the difference. But I'm not willing to risk. Our lifestyle is dependent on my license. I'm not going to jeopardize my husband. Like, people forget that. Like, I have a sense of obligation to being sane and making medically intelligent decisions. I'm not going to bring a mom with mech coming out her yoni and a baby with D cells and mom's blood pressure, just a wreck. I'm going to go well before any of those things have manifested. So he was very relieved, and now we have their full support. And I won't be surprised if he pays for that home birth.
Well, and it's tragic that medical doctors are not trained in natural birth.
That's our biggest cut.
Where does that trace back to? Is that a case of like the early 1911 Flexner Report, Abraham Flexner, Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie? They basically centralized medicine, shut down a bunch of hospitals.
They just threw it out the window. There was we need our own process.
Exactly.
Well, back to the day, the granny midwives were doing most, if not all, of the births. And then, yes, it was a way to make money. And so they started to push the midwives out, make it where they had to have a certain type of training that made that more difficult. So they eventually just got pushed out altogether. And then the medical, under this guise of, and they would promote them as being dirty, lacking knowledge, when they had the most incredible knowledge because they did so many just normal births over and over and over. So yeah,
That's the American side of it.
ties it.
That's the American chapter.
Dark side. Yeah.
Well, that's the American chapter of this push. The first push, of course, was in Europe,
Yeah.
where they just replaced all the females with all males, basically, and set up medical schools and set up everything and made an exclusionary club so that there's no access for those who were trained, and they were obviously castigated and pushed out of the whole process. So, yeah, it's that evolution, and then we get to here, and I've said this before, and I have a master's in marketing, so I'm a little bit astute in that arena, that the American Medical Association is the greatest and biggest and boldest marketing arm in the history of the country,
I agree.
by far.
They did the same thing with skin cancer, modern dermatology. They quite literally hired a PR company to, brand themselves as skin cancer fighters. And so there's an entire rabbit hole to that. But I see common themes. I'm like, okay, the raw dairy subject, same thing. Sunlight, same thing. Birth, same thing. So you can't ignore it when you're educated. You just can't.
If we were going to go a little bit into that conspiracy angle, if I was a country and I wanted to control the people, I would absolutely drug the mom during birth. I would absolutely separate her from that deep bonding so that it's easier to not breastfeed. Because then if we could, and I'm not saying that formula feeding is bad or alternative feedings are in any way less than, but there is a difference if a mother can breastfeed on that connecting with that baby on a cellular level. And then it might make it easier to go to work. And then we maintain our workforce. And then it makes it easier to put your kids in public school and the other word that we're not going to fray up right now. It just creates a kind of dulled people, and they're easier to manage. But
Can you go a little bit into the breastfeeding subject? Like, can you spell out how incredible it is for the health of baby and mom?
Well, it's a beautiful thing to me.
it's
Incredible, because we know the benefits for the most part in terms of raising intuition and bonding.
absolutely. And
That's the first thing that comes to mind.
right. The brain waves get in sync between the mother and the infant. And whatever's on the baby's face, there's a little bit of a backwash that happens in the breast. So if there's a new virus on the baby's mouth, her breast will begin to form antibodies. Even then, at the level of the breast, before anybody's ever sick, which is why breastfed babies generally don't get sick. So just in her sense, like a breastfeeding mom will wake up about 2 seconds before her baby, because the brain waves start to shift as the baby's getting hungry. So she's sensing it in her brain, and then she's awake and they're nursing. So it is pretty incredible. What else?
Craziest. So my sister last year, she lives in Saudi Arabia now. She got married and lives out there. Her husband works out there. She came here to give birth, grabbed the U.S. citizenship, dipped back. So basically, I hung out with her for a good 3 months, and her husband was back home working still. And I noticed something. When I would visit her at the hospital, she would be asleep, the baby's asleep, and then the baby would start crying. And while she's asleep, she would pick up the baby and just like no brainer. Just,
Right.
it's like, what's just happening, even though. And then my mom would talk to her and she'd be like, "Oh, did you feed her?" And she's like, "No, I didn't." And then my mom would be like, "She did," but she doesn't remember. So I'm like, is that something where it's just automatic? There's just a link now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've seen it happen too. It's crazy.
And moral.
Also, while mothers are breastfeeding, when they go to sleep, they go into deep sleep instantly. They skip the normal stages of sleep. So we always challenge our moms when they're going to complain about, "Oh, I'm up every 2 hours." But as long as you're sleeping at all, you're getting deep sleep, whereas your partner probably needs to get into that more stages, those cycles, those 90-minute cycles, to get some deep rest. So they have a superpower. And plus their smelling is enhanced. Remember, one of our moms was complaining about she could smell everything. I think about it. If we were still living out in the wild, you would need to know if that herb was safe to your baby.
Yeah.
And your sense of smell and taste is heightened, so you can protect your child. So be thankful that you can smell everything so great and taste.
Would suck to live in Chino.
It's too much cow poop. Trying to think. What about for you in the experience of men with this work?
I think it's been really rewarding to step into this space and recognize that there is a real need for what we like to call the sacred male in this. I think for too long in this country, that's another rabbit hole as to why it seems like men didn't need to be a part of this, or the partner doesn't need to be a part of this. It's tragic, because we believe that if when a couple comes together, they're already a family. Children are just being added to a family. Children don't make a family. So giving the man the opportunity to be at a place where wherever he's at on the continuum of education or history or understanding or lack of all of that, that he's comfortable and safe to be able to be respected and to be brought into the process and to be considered just as important as mom and baby in the pregnancy and birth journey. So in my world, I've been called at times the daddy doula. Right?
A lot of guys, from me myself, I don't know what I would be able to do or participate in without. So I just see someone in pain, and then people
To fix it.
consoling, and then anything I say is probably going to be damaging. So it's kind of like, want water?
Right. Well, I think a lot of men over the generations were relieved when they thought that their only job was to go smoke a cigar in a waiting room and wait. It's a boy, right? Which cigar am I going to pull out? The blue one or the pink one? But with the folks that we work with and with what we're seeing happen is that when we provide an atmosphere, an environment for their respect and for their lack of understanding even, then it starts to bring them out into being a full participant in what's going on, which we immediately see then their partner with child get very excited about, because they know that they're not in this alone, and they're not walking this what I call their Mount Everest climb when it comes to labor and birth. They're not doing that alone. And so we're seeing honestly a real need for men to be given a forum and platform to express where they're at and where they're not at, and which I'm working on right now, honestly, to create a platform to bring dads in and wherever they're at on the continuum to let them come and express and ask questions and be themselves and just let it come out.
And back to that about the dads. One of the ways that we prepare our fathers, as they knows, we do a birth prep meeting. It's about a 3 to 4 hour class around 37 weeks where we bring all their supplies. But we have 100 slides with everything. We cover, don't say these types of things to your wife, it probably won't, or your partner probably won't be helpful. So we do cover that, like nervous reactions. But we also go into what can create that nervousness for the dad, or for even the mom, or if somebody else is visiting. So we show video clips of cord wraps around the babies and the moms untangling their babies. We show videos of shoulder dystocias where the babies are stuck. And on one, I'm getting the baby out. Another one, Richard's getting out an 11-pound baby that was very wedged.
Wow.
And there's another one, you see me resuscitate a baby. You see slow to breathe babies. You see, so it normalizes it. They're like, oh, okay. So this is your skill set. Instead of you just taking my word for it, then when something's happening, there's kind of a piece, and it all happens on the mom. We're not cutting cords and taking babies. We're doing everything right there on the spot. So I think that goes so far in creating a confidence in him, in his team, so that he's just not a big nervous wreck. I remember we had this late to care client. He works at the one over there, but lives right next to my cousin, or my niece, my cousin, second cousin. Remember, I have the 19 aunts and uncles, the 87 children, and then all the 200 and some of them. But they hired us super late, and the baby had a really low heart rate when it was born. So I'm doing positive pressure ventilation. I'm expanding the lungs, pushing fluid into the alveolar so the capillaries will drink it up, and all this good stuff. And even though he saw videos, because he's a medical person, he got so nervous. The mom was never nervous. I wasn't nervous. Baby did great. But he admitted, like, I was so nervous about that. Just because he goes, I'm so used to the 5-alarm fire. When we have somebody code, or if something happens, like, everybody comes in and there's all this chaos. But I feel like that chaos is counterproductive to getting this baby to breathe. We want to invite the baby to step into their body. We want them to feel welcomed and loved, not scared into it. So we're very gentle with Well, we have to resuscitate.
And we really help the guys I try to help them always to know that they have a real big role and there are things to do because we're doers often and we want to fix something or we want to be a part of something that's going to be happening. So being educated and learning to support well along the journey, as well as then in that time of labor and birth, to be able to really be their best version in their relationship with their partner is really for me the thing I love to see, because their dance together is a beautiful thing if it's allowed to happen together. Mm-hmm. And we're not trying to make them learn things or do things or just ostracizing them completely. We're bringing them in, let them do their relationship. And as long as they do their relationship the way that they feel most comfortable doing it, then we know that the outcomes are probably going to be really good for their fathers. And they're going to have an experience that they were hoping to have.
That's why we're fans of doulas, because we just feel like dads should not be in the role of being the coach.
100%.
Because in our back to our sex, it's like, can you imagine the husband is coaching his wife on how to properly reach orgasm and like monitoring her stages of arousal and checking to make sure it's all happening right. And, comparing that to the book he's reading about it completely wouldn't work. And we think birth is, as I said, more sensitive. So having a doula who does understand those stages, who can facilitate it wordlessly with her hands and touch and massage and aromatherapy, encouragement, food. Maybe she just gets you food or makes you take a nap. All those things matter.
And we're very realistic people. We understand we have not been hired by folks because I work in our practice. I get that. And that's fine. We totally understand that. We have at times, though, have had a couple families that we know of and will be sharing in the future about who actually have hired us because of me, because of her past challenges and her past negative relationship to men, whether it be father or ex-husband or abuser or wherever they have come from, and realize that in this invitation of another male being there and creating a safe space for them, that this relationship can really expand where they're at and help them heal and move forward in their lives as well. So
I can see how that's tough.
Yeah.
Well,
much.
I mean, what you girls do is beautiful, to be honest. It is a dance on its own. And I like the fact that a clueless man has now something to do. And you guys are inviting them into this world,
Yes.
activity and knowledge, so that they don't walk in feeling kind of like a mysteries on the other side.
Or they're like an add-on, like they're not an essential.
right, or they're stupid, or you're not necessary. Huge part. No, we're really big on their development and evolution of their journey in this too.
Any last message for the people listening?
I say just vet your provider and be very firm about what you want and don't give in. I mean, yes, sometimes you have to give on certain things, but not the big stuff. Do you want delayed cord pumping? You have a right to it. If you don't want to birth on your back, get on your hands and knees and just stay there. Even with an epidural, you can drop the foot of the bed down and you can lean forward on pillows and have support from your team. But birthing on the back, I think, is what's creating most of the problem in the hospital setting.
It's crazy because even sleeping on your back is good.
For me, I would say, like the host of this nice podcast did, own your journey. Just own it.
Responsibility.
Take it, own it, go with it, learn about it, get excited about it, make it yours, create a vision, and do all you can to step towards that every step of the way.
Well, tell you what, you guys are changing the world in your own way. You've influenced my family heavily for the best, and I think that there's, in my mind, nothing more important to do than bring a child into this world properly and holistically. And so I appreciate you guys immensely.
Can I Pat?
I can see.
Yeah.
If I was going to give like a few pointers that everybody should do, I would say get morning sun in your eyes.
There we go.
Close to sunrise as you can. And sunset, I would say cut out sugar completely and be dogmatic about it, especially in pregnancy. It's so important. I would say do not drink plain filtered water. You have to add minerals into it. I would say get your feet on the earth. I was going to make the list of the 10 dailies. Get your feet on the earth for at least 10 minutes a day, and that's a minimum. Or get a grounding mat. What's another one? Oh, I wouldn't eat hormones from meat. You want to get hormone-free meat and a lot of fruit. That would be my tips.
Amazing.
As sensitive as birth is, it is also serious, and you guys are really helping ease that seriousness. So, cool. Thanks for having us. Yeah. Thank you guys for coming on. You guys should all follow them. Do you guys have a joint account for Instagram?
We
We have a singular account.
I'll link everything up. So
yeah, we should get a joint account.
Well, it's Barefoot Midwife, so
I have
it's
to change the username since he's not going to be a midwife anymore. I have to change the bearded midwife.
Bearded Midwife Assistant. That's all you have to do. That's good enough.
yeah, we'll have all the links in there so people can follow you guys. If there's anyone local to Southern California, Inland Empire, some parts of LA, they'll be able to get in touch with you.
So offer post-birth debriefing. So if somebody's had a traumatic birth and they just want to break it down and understand what happened, we do that like an hour session or so they can always reach out for something like that. Can really help clear the space for the next birth if they want more.
Amazing.
Yeah, amazing. You guys heard it here, folks. You go ahead and subscribe on YouTube at the 2 a.m. podcast. We're available on Twitter at 2 a.m. pod. Go ahead and rate us 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That really helps us. Thank you guys. We will catch you next time.